the Obama administration tries to play catch-up in educating Congress, governors, and the American people about the screening process for Syrian refugees, some lawmakers still oppose any pause in admitting the refugees. One of those lawmakers is Congressman Gutiérrez, Democrat from Illinois. He has said that any pause or effort to block the admission of refugees is despicable. Congressman, you may understand the 18-month screening process. I may understand it. Our viewers may now understand it, but so many Americans do not. So why not take time now to pause and educate everybody about it before resuming things?
First of all, let's understand something. Yesterday, the governor of my state did something that I think was cowardly and despicable, and that is issue an executive order which he knows has absolutely no enforcement in law whatsoever. As a matter of fact, a Syrian family of 5 resettled in the city of Chicago, as have a couple of thousand since the began in the United States of America. And as most, there were children, there were women, and there were the elderly. People who are fleeing violence in Syria, people who are fleeing hunger, people who are fleeing rape, and that's what they're feeling. Listen, I understand one thing, that there are those that are going to be fear-mongers. Remember last year, Ebola? We were all going to get it any second. We had to shut down the borders. Remember Governor Christie going after the poor North and wanting to put everybody. So look, it's always despicable to use fear and irrational fear, especially against what an undertone of xenophobia, with an undertone.
But isn't there a difference now?
So
because I seem to remember that, for example, if you use Ebola, the administration did a very quick job of trying to remind people, here's how you get Ebola, here's how you don't get Ebola. In this particular case, the Obama administration waited until last night before educating governors, lawmakers, journalists, and trying to explain, here's the process we have. 4 days after these attacks, 4 days when a lot of these people who, for fear or xenophobia or whatever, were able to convince the American public that there is no screening process.
Look, you cannot ask me to be an apologist or to explain to you or to somehow give you a definition of why it is or excuse people when they use bigotry, when they use fear and fear-mongering instead of good public policy. Here are the facts. The fact is that there was a terrible terrorist attack in Paris, France. Someone from Syria traveled there. He didn't go through the same program that those that were just resettled in the city of Chicago yesterday. Those who were resettled in the city of Chicago yesterday spent over 2 years in a refugee camp, not being reviewed once, but twice, but 3 times, quadruple. We have wonderful American patriots trained to keep the homeland safe and secure, and they are checking the screenings and improving upon the screenings. So I want the American public to understand, I understand why there would be fear. I get that part, right? We all understand that. But we have members of our military, we have members of our intelligence community, we have our soldiers, we have our FBI, we have our intelligence community not working full-time but double-time to keep us safe. And this program is not where the weakness in our system is at. If anything, it is part of the strongest.
But
so
Congressman,
look,
I agree with you on that. You're absolutely right.
It isn't that they...
You are absolutely correct. I agree with you. People who look at the screening process agree with you. The question, though, is doesn't it seem like the Democrats are losing this politically, in part because Republicans were able to fill this vacuum of misunderstanding that the American people may have with whatever sort of xenophobia that they wanted to try and use as a political wedge?
Sure. Look, here's all I can tell you, is that I need to stand on principle. So when I saw it, I didn't, look, if I'm going to come to Congress to pick the political, how would I say, popular position to be, then I will join those who market in fear in politics. I wanted to set the record straight, and I believe that I have attempted to do that. But here's what I want to say. It isn't that they said that there needed to be a pause. If they had come to me and said, hey, Luis, could we re-examine this issue? Could we take a new look and fresh look at it? Could we make sure that maybe we could add an extra layer to it? I would have said, I welcome that conversation. We should always be first and foremost for making sure that Americans are safe. That is our response. That's not what they said. What one governor after another governor did, what they did not have the power to do, was shut down a system. And then they said that the terrorists that left Syria, was those same kind of terrorists were coming to America. You know who's coming to America? Women with their children who are fleeing murderers and ISIS and the Assad regime that are murdering their children. There's got to be, but I'm just trying to say there's got to be somewhere in America room for those women, for those elderly, and for those children. And what they said is none of them can come to the United States of America.
Well, look, and we pointed out earlier in the show that the governors, what they've done with these executive orders is nonsense because they don't have any power over immigration policy, that was all for political show. The question, though, is in terms of what Congress is doing now, why not agree, as Senator Schumer has suggested, a Democrat, that, okay, maybe it is time for Congress to take, as you just said, let's take another look at this process. Let's make sure it's safe before we resume it. What's wrong with that?
Here's what's wrong with that. There are already people that have gone through 3 and 4 checks. Look, that family that came to Chicago yesterday and settled in my city of Chicago, I'm so happy that America opened up, that my city, my state, and my country opened up its heart to them. We should not allow people to, how would I say this, to justify or control our public policy on the basis of fear. I'm going to say something. I think of the fear that we used and we interned the Japanese, and we've regretted it ever since World War II. You know, there would be Jews that would have survived the Holocaust. We regretted those moments. Do we really want a moment to regret it today? There are people, I think you should understand, I hope the American people understand another thing. Can't you see the real right now that ISIS is preparing as propaganda? One governor after another governor saying, we can't trust them, they can't come to this country.
All the reason then to get at least members of Congress.
Only.
But right, I agree 100%. And no argument on that. But isn't that all the more reason to at least say, okay, let's cut off the governors. Let's at least focus on the Republicans in Congress. Let's work together. Let's have some hearings. Let's review the screening process. That way, when the process does begin, all of Congress and the administration are supporting it so that everybody can say this is what the United States stands for. Because we are confident in this process.
But let me just say this. See, what you're saying is if people use lies, right, and deception and fear, then we must stop good programs that serve people. I say no to deception, to lies, and to fears. And I'm ready to stand up. Look, I didn't come here with an unwillingness to lose election to the Congress of the United States. Because if that's what we're going to do, then I think we have failed the system miserably. I came here to set good public policy. And I will tell you something. I come again. You remember last summer we were all going to get Ebola. We should shut the borders down. 1 year later, this irrationality. They do the same thing. It's the Mexican rapists and murderers at the border. It's always fear and fear-mongering. We're better than that as a nation. We've shown in the past when we let fear determine our public policy, it's not been a good day. America's the beacon of hope. Certainly there's got to be, why should we stop a program if women who are being raped and whose children are being sold into slavery are in fear and coming to America? Why should I stop that kind of a program? Nobody in America thinks we should stop that kind of program or even put a pause to it.
Congressman Luis Gutiérrez, a Democrat from Illinois. Congressman, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Coming up, Ali Velshi talks to the man behind an Istanbul organization whose aim is to help the people he says have been hurt the most by ISIL, Syrian